Hi, lieve luisteraar. Welkom bij aflevering INTENS 172. En ja, je hebt het goed gelezen, je hebt het goed gehoord. Niemand minder dan Mark Manson, de auteur van The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Meer dan 10 miljoen exemplaren wereldwijd verkocht. Zit in deze aflevering gewoon van de 100% Inspiratie Podcast. Je hoort het aan mijn stem. Ik hoop dat je net als ik super enthousiast bent. Nou, waar gaan we het dan over hebben? Mark die deelt zijn definitie van geluk en succes met jou. En, dit heb ik hem niet eerder zien doen, hij is ook gewoon heel eerlijk en kwetsbaar over een moeilijke periode uit zijn leven. Natuurlijk deelt hij ook met jou zijn theorie als het gaat om de subtle art of not giving a fuck. En hij maakt de zelfhulp zien met de grond gelijk. Nou, dat is zeker in deze podcast nog wel interessant. Er is veel mis met de huidige zelfhulp zien en wel 3 dingen. Nou, en welke 3 dat zijn, daar kom je dus achter in dit interview. Nou, voordat ik Mark aan het woord ga laten, heb ik nog iets super tofs met je. Want zet maar gewoon in je agenda. Donderdag 16 april dit jaar, donderdag 16 april 2020... heeft Denken Producties Mark Manson naar Nederland gehaald en daar een fucking vet event omheen gebouwd. Dat event heet Masters of Mindset. En je gaat die dag leren hoe je aan je mindset kunt werken. Niet alleen hoe je aan je succes mindset kan werken, maar dit vind ik nog veel belangrijker. Hoe je er met je mindset voor kan zorgen dat je gewoon meer geluk kunt ervaren. Vandaag de dag in het hier en nu. Nou, en een aantal topsprekers die gaan je inspireren. Ik zal er een paar noemen. Bertolt Gunster, je kent hem natuurlijk van zijn theorie van omdenken. Hè? De oprichter van, de grondlegger van het omdenken. Bas van der Veld, de CEO van AVAS. Bibian Mentel, vriendin van de show. Misschien ken je haar van deze podcast. En als hoofdgast Mark Manson. En hij gaat het onder andere met jou hebben over 12 stupid things people care about too much. Nou, dat vind ik heerlijke Mark Manson taal. Wat zijn nou 12 dingen waar we met z'n allen veel te veel ons zorgen om maken, terwijl het helemaal niet nodig is? Ik ben er sowieso bij deze dag. Het is in AVAS Live. En dan niet in de grote zaal, dat je denkt super massaal, maar nee, in een kleine bijzaal. En jij kan er ook bij zijn. Je kan hiervoor gewoon een ticket bestellen. Maar als je via deze podcast je ticket bestelt, krijg je hele vette extra's. Ik heb Denkproducties even opgebeld en die zeiden: oké, Thijs, we willen voor de eerste 25 mensen die via jouw podcast een ticket bestellen wel wat extra's doen. Wat zijn die extra's dan? Nou, je krijgt natuurlijk behalve iedereen gewoon toegang tot dit eendaagse event. Maar je krijgt ook een boek van Mark Manson, gesigneerd door Mark himself. Je krijgt een meet and greet met Mark, inclusief fotomoment. Hoe fucking vet is dat? En ik mag maar 25 van deze exclusieve vouchers of extra's meegeven. Hoe kan je dit nou doen? Je moet gewoon even een mailtje sturen naar mindset@dethijsshow.nl. mindset@dethijsshow.nl. Krijg je meteen een mailtje terug met een unieke link. Dus als je dan via die unieke link je ticket bestelt, dan krijg je een meet and greet, een gesigneerd boek en een fotomoment met Mark Manson. Dus fucking vet. En ik zie je daar waarschijnlijk ook. Ik ben er ook bij. Dus claim deze kans. Mail even naar mindset@dethijsshow.nl. Hopelijk zie ik je daar en ga ervan genieten. Lieve mensen, hier is hij dan in de 100% Inspiratie Podcast. Mark Manson.
100% wijs!
Yeah, we're live. Okay.
Cool.
Air 5. Looking that was super nerdy. Okay, looking forward, to the interview. And man, the book, you sold like 6 million pieces. Is that correct? In total?
Yeah, actually, it's up over 10 now internationally.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
crazy.
insane. And I think in Holland it's probably like maybe 500,000. Something like that.
Yeah, that's like half of our population. That's
yeah,
great.
exactly.
And not only 10 million people have bought the book, but I heard Hans Jansen from Denkproducties, from Think Productions, told me that because of the e-books and the audiobooks, they can measure this, that it's one of the 4 books that's mostly read until the end. One of the 4 books that people actually read until the end.
Oh wow, yeah.
So,
yeah, it's amazing.
That's cool, right? But I'm just gonna start with a question that's familiar for my listener, because it's the only question that I always prepare, and it's what do you want to be or become when you grow up?
That's a good question. I think right now I would like to be a a force of change in the culture. That's what I want to be when I grow up.
A force of change in the culture. What do you mean by in the culture?
I've made my career challenging a lot of cultural assumptions about happiness, success, what a good life is, things like that. And I've experienced a lot of career success already, which that was great. It was a lot of fun, but it's, off the back of that, I really had to come back to, wait, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
The money's nice and it's cool to travel around the world and speak to big audiences and stuff. But really, what am I trying to do here? Like, why did I get into this in the first place? And it's just, I feel like we've developed some cultural values around these things like happiness, success, living well, that I think are leading us a little bit in the wrong direction. And so I like to think of myself as kind of the force of change, like ramming up against that, trying to push the ship in another direction.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
And let's maybe dive headfirst into this. What do you think, in your opinion, is wrong with the conventional self-help?
Where do I start? I have a lot of I do think the self-help industry does a lot of good, but I have a lot of major criticisms of it, and I guess you could even say that my mission is to disrupt and kind of change the self-help industry in general. So the biggest problem I feel is that self-help addresses psychological and emotional problems as though they're algorithmic, as though it's like, hey, if you just do these 5 things, then you're going to be happy. Or if you do these 4 things, then you're going to have a great relationship. And it's like, well, maybe, but like, it's not that simple. People are very complicated. Things get messy. What works for you doesn't necessarily work for me, and vice versa. And so I think, and I find that a lot of people kind of get locked into that algorithmic mindset, and then they beat themselves up. They're like, oh, well, I only did 4 of the 5 things. Like, I'm such a loser.
Yeah.
And so it ends up becoming kind of counterproductive. The other thing that really bugs me about conventional self-help, well, there's 2 other things that bug me about conventional self-help. One is this idea is that like change only happens over like very brief periods. So the argument I always make is like, you are always changing. We are all always changing. It's just that most of the changes are below our awareness, and because they're subtle and they're slow moving. But generally, it's by adding up all of these slow and subtle changes that we actually get like a real profound life change at some point. This idea that you can pay a couple $1,000 in 2 days, like completely change your life.
Yeah. Life will never be the same again. Yeah.
It's bullshit. It's to me, it's a placebo. And,
yeah.
And so that it's easy to market that, but I don't think it's particularly useful. And then the last thing that bugs me is that the way I describe it in one of my articles is I say that self-help is great. Like, the real purpose of self-help is to get people from okay to great. You don't want to get people who are like in a really bad spot to okay. Like, that's the job of a psychiatrist, a therapist, a family member.
Yeah.
Like, it's we have no business dealing with suicidal people with mental illness, things like that. We're not qualified. Telling a suicidal person to think positive is like, it's almost insulting, how all that is. So I think there needs to be a focus on people who are generally okay, or maybe just mildly miserable, who are still functional and miserable, and getting them to just kind of optimize them, if that makes sense.
Yes. So you think that self-help only focuses on people who are okay, and you also think that people who are not okay, like would say my life is a 4 on a scale of 0 to 10, and you think those people, that they should. Yeah. What exactly do you mean by that? That those people also should be like helped?
Yeah. So I think self-help works for people who are like a 4 or 5 and getting them up to like a 7 or 8.
Oh, okay.
Or taking somebody at like a 7 and getting them to like a 9. Like that, I think that's what self-help is good for. If you get people at 1 or 2, they should not be doing self-help. Like, I mean, self-help's not, ideally, it's not going to hurt them. But like, if you take a person at a 1 or a 2, like they need something much deeper and more personal and more serious. Than kind of your typical like rah self-help seminar.
And with your blogs, do you sometimes focus on the 1s and 2s?
I try not to, and I get emails from them a lot, and I always point them to therapists, psychiatrists, suicide hotlines, other resources, basically. Because if you're at a 1 or 2, you need like a single person's full focus and attention. I deal with hundreds and hundreds of people every single day. You know, like I'm not gonna, like, me spending 5 minutes of my time is not gonna do anything. And if I'm not careful, it might make something worse. You know, so I just pass on all of those situations.
Yeah. And let's elaborate on these 3 things, because I love this, and I know and think that my listeners love this. The first thing you said, I think I could summarize it like self-help indirectly says you're not okay at the moment. When you say, I dream of this kind of body, relationship, career, you indirectly say, I'm not okay right now.
Yes, absolutely.
I think,
like it's a subtle side effect of, like, let me just put it this way. I hear from people all the time who are like, hey man, I'm trying to get to the next level. And I'm like, okay, like what's the next level? Like, what does that look like for you? They're like, oh man, I want to be like crushing it in my job more. And, you know, I want to like have a better family life. And they describe all these things. I'm like, okay, well, tell me about your life now. And it's like, they have a great job. They have a great family. They have cool hobbies. They go on awesome trips. They have awesome friends. And I'm like, so wait, where's the problem here? And they're like, well, you know, I just feel like I could be crushing it. You know, like I just want to like really push it. And I'm like, you know, maybe that's the problem, is that desire. It's like that feeling of not enough is actually the problem. It's not that you're not doing enough. It's the feeling that you're not doing enough. That is the actual problem. And so I almost try to like talk people out of self-improvement sometimes, because I'm like, actually, I think your problem is the desire to improve yourself. Like, you're fine, man. Just keep working. Like,
it's a coincidence that yesterday I was talking with a friend, and he's just like I am, really into self-help and stuff, and self-development, and he said, I think I'm tired of all this self-development shit. He said, I'm tired of always thinking, how does this relate to my parents? And how does this pattern today comes from my dad, like when I was a child? And he was like, I'm tired of that. So I think some people, some self-help junkies can maybe relate to this. And I really like a sentence, I think it's in the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, that you said, the desire towards a positive experience is a negative experience. I hope I translated right. And the acceptance of a negative experience becomes a positive experience.
Exactly. It's an idea that I got from an Alan Watts book, and he called it the backwards law. But it's basically the pursuit, the idea that there's some positive experience that you do not have by assuming that you are creating a negative experience for yourself. And when you accept a negative experience as just a part of your life, that paradoxically becomes a positive experience. It becomes like a relief, you know? And so, in a weird way, I think sometimes it's the best thing you can do for yourself is to simply let go. Like paradoxically, the thing that will improve your life the most is letting go of the desire to improve your life. Sometimes, it's like the guy you were talking to. It's like making the decision of like, you know what? It doesn't matter how it relates to my parents anymore. Like my parents are fine.
Yeah.
I'm over, like getting to that I'm over it place, is like, that's kind of the final step.
So
like, okay,
yeah.
cool.
A lot of seminars in self-help have like the marketing slogan of something like, do you also have the feeling that you could get more out of life? But I think the slogan should be accept more or something like that. That's what I get out of this.
Well, and it drives me crazy because it's like, of course you feel like you could, like everybody feels like they could get more out of life. Like that's just it's a natural part of the human condition. And so I we're all kind of running on this treadmill with like the carrot hanging in front of us, thinking that like one day we're going to get the carrot. And it's like, no, man, because there's just always another carrot. And so at some point you have to just come to terms with that and be happy with the path you're on.
Yeah. And I know I think that's one of the reasons that you're so popular, that you're really down to earth and very practical. So when we're talking about this, about maybe you should just accept more how life is, that's not a concrete thing to do. You cannot say, okay, do acceptance. So do you have some practical advice for people who are listening and think, yeah, okay, Mark, thank you, but give me some stuff to work on this.
I like to think of these things in terms of like thought experiments. So, one thing that was very profound for me, I had my family life was kind of, I wrote about it in the book, but like my family life like wasn't very good during my adolescence and teenage years. And I had a lot of problems with my father for a long time, all through my teenage years and my 20s. And then once I got into my 30s, I was constantly butting heads with him. And it was this constant idea of like, I need to improve this relationship, but he's being such an asshole because he thinks this and he does that. And I wish my dad would be this way instead. And I was constantly like pushing against this relationship, trying to make it work for me. And at some point about 5 years ago, I just realized I'm like, okay, he's like 70 or he was like 65. I'm like, he's not going to change. Like, this is just who he is.
Yeah.
And I need to live with this because otherwise I'm going to spend the rest of his life resenting him. And it was amazing. As soon as I just realized, I'm like, that's who he is. And I need to adjust. It's my responsibility to adjust my expectations for him. It actually, like, we have a great relationship now. And so it's a lot of it is what it took was me sitting down and being like, okay, how bad is it really? Like, what would my life, like, let's say nothing ever changes. He's the same forever. How bad is my life really going to be? And I realized I'm like, it's not that bad. I can live with it. I'll make it work. Yeah. And as soon as I realized that, I'm like, wow, that's just like such a, I think this is why journaling is so good because it forces you into these thought experiments.
Yeah.
It forces you to imagine an alternative, and to be very honest about like, okay, like how painful is this problem? Is it really that painful, or am I simply like pushing something into the wound over and over and over again to keep it open? And a lot of times we are.
So that's like your version of positive thinking is like, okay, let's be realistic here. How bad is my life really?
Yeah. It's like instead of positive thinking, it's like it's not as bad as you think thinking. Yeah.
Cool. And people I think everybody can understand this example, but maybe there are situations in life that are more difficult to accept. For example, maybe a physical condition, or you can't accept your finance, the situation your finances are in, or the situation your relationship is in. Maybe that's a little bit harder to accept than just how your father is. Can you help those people who are listening now and who can relate to one of those kinds of issues?
Yeah, I think ultimately those sorts of things, I have a saying that I kind of live by, which is the best thing about somebody is usually also the worst thing, and the worst thing about somebody is usually also the best thing. So it's generally all of these experiences have some sort of hidden like shadow to them that are the opposite of them. So it's like I had a friend who not only did he go completely broke, but like he started a business and the business went bankrupt and he was like $200,000 in debt. And it took him like 10 years to get out of that debt. And today when he talks about it, he says it's the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing. Because he said, like, after that, it's like I can survive anything. Like there's no more fear of like, oh, well, what if this project goes wrong? It's like, I blew it so hard the first time that you can only go up from here.
Yeah.
But it also it taught him a lot of lessons, about money and investment and risk. A lot of people who struggle with chronic conditions, you come across the same thing oftentimes. It's like they struggle with this thing throughout their life, but that thing also creates a certain part of their character. It has presented them to experiences and ideas that the rest of us don't have because we don't have that condition. And so they end up with kind of this unique perspective on the world, and how to confront the world, because of that condition. And so I think, I think when they came up with the whole positive thinking thing, like this is kind of what they meant, is like find that subtle underside of like whatever that bad thing is in your life, there's something behind it that is very hard to see that's actually very positive, and like learn how to see that. And I just think over the decades that kind of got misconstrued as, just be happy, just, smile and be thankful and like all this stuff. Yeah. And it's like, no. It's not like, if you're thinking positive in the right way, like it's not a fun thing to do. It's like, it's a very gut wrenching, difficult thing to do. And so it's, I tried to preach that, I guess.
Yeah. And would you say that you need setbacks in life to be happy?
Absolutely. And I mean, here's the thing, you're going to have setbacks, whether you want them or not. So, life is all about your attitude towards those setbacks. If you have an attitude of like, I don't want them, I don't want this wasn't my choice, this isn't my fault. It's just going to eat you alive slowly over a long period of time. Whereas if your attitude towards them is like, okay, well, life's fucking hard and bad things happen to good people, and this is my bad thing, and I'm gonna make something out of it. I'm gonna find something worthwhile in this bad thing, and that I feel like that attitude is what happiness actually is.
Yeah, great. And you were talking about carrots earlier on. Not as in the food, but the metaphor. and you said something like chasing carrots doesn't make you happy or something like that. But everyone has carrots. You always have like things you are aiming for, something like that. What is a current carrot in your life?
Well, I like to think of this. I like to think of it in terms of like tangible carrots and intangible carrots, or like kind of tangible missions or intangible missions. And I feel like you need both, because so it's nice to have those like external, so sorry, I'm messing up the camera here.
Oh, no problem.
I feel like you need both. You can't, if you have only like tangible goals, like I want to sell 1 million books, or I want to make $1 million, or I want to, win a gold medal or whatever. That's very motivating, but once you hit that goal, it's going to leave you, there's kind of this emptiness on the other side of it, of like, what do I do now? So I think you need a intangible goals to kind of to balance that. So I like to set the intangible goals first. Like, so right now, kind of my mission in life is I want to disrupt and change the self-help industry, change the culture of the self-help industry, and affect the culture at large. And that's a very intangible thing. Like, there's no easy metric to know that I've accomplished that. And that's actually the benefit of that.
Yeah.
It's not clear when I'm done or not. And then from that intangible goal, then I create tangible goals. So it's like, okay, I want to sell this many books. I want to like launch a new course. I want to increase my blog readership to 3 million readers or whatever. And it's like you pull the tangible goals out of the intangible goal. And the intangible goal, if it's a good one, will just present you this endless supply of tangible goals to keep pursuing and attacking. That'd be a good article. I should write an article about that.
Yeah, well, it makes me think about. I made a summary of your book, the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, because I did in this podcast 2 years ago. I did a book presentation about that book. It was in the summer, and I asked my listeners in the summer. I'm not going to do interviews, but I'll do a book presentation. And what book do you love the most? And well, yeah, this sounds really like how you say that? Slijmen. That's a Dutch word. Ass licking. That's the English word, I guess. But really, people said you should do the book that Mark Manson wrote. So I made a summary, and I ended my summary with the following sentence. It is the act of choosing your values and living by them that makes you great, not any outcome or accomplishment. Give only a fuck about things that align with your personal values.
Yeah,
and I think that kind of sums up what you were saying. So it's not the outcome or the accomplishment, but live by your values every day. Is that how to summarize it?
Yeah, and it's that is the necessary piece. Because I think what people go wrong is, and Simon Sinek discusses this in terms of the finding your why. It's what people go wrong is it's very easy to create tangible goals for yourself. Finding something to win, finding some number to hit. But the problem is that tangible goal, it's not meaningful in and of itself. The thing that makes it meaningful is the why, is the intangible goal. So you need to have that intangible goal that reflects your values, kind of imposing your values or pushing your values into the world. And then you can derive all of the fun little metrics that are exciting to get up in the morning and work on from that starting place.
Yeah, maybe this is a great timing to elaborate on your the subtle art of not giving a fuck theory. You only have limited amounts of fucks to give, so choose wisely. You have explained this, of course, a million times, but for my listener, can you explain the essence, the basis of your subtle art of not giving a fuck theory?
So basically, I talk about there's 3 subtleties. The first one is you have a limited amount of fucks to give. Oh no, the first one is whether you want to or not, you have to give a fuck about something. It's impossible. Not giving a fuck completely is impossible.
Yeah.
We all have to care about something.
Yeah.
And even if you decide you don't care about anything, you're still choosing the care that you care about. You don't care about anything. So that's the first one. The second one is you have a limited amount of things that you can care about or you can give a fuck about in your life. So you have to choose carefully what is deserving of your fucks? What is deserving of what you're going to spend your time on? And that's a very, very difficult question. And we spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. And then the third one, I can't believe it. I'm actually blanking on the third subtlety.
Have you read the book?
Time. Yeah, it's been a number of years now. But I think it's basically, shit. Do you have it there?
No, I when I was reading the summary, I got enthusiastic immediately because you write such wise stuff. And I really like the thing about you say problems is happiness. So you always have to give a fuck about something. So that's the first or second thing you just mentioned, and I really like that because are you gonna give a fuck about the battery of your iPhone, of that the train is 10 minutes late, or other stupid things, or are you going to give a fuck about more important problems in your life, because problems means happiness? I really like that. I think that's the second one you just mentioned.
Oh, I remember. It's you can't.
Oh,
and to overcome adversity, you must give a fuck about something other than adversity. So and that's kind of the central message of the book, is that if you're just trying to feel good all the time, you're going to make yourself feel worse because you're not focusing on something more important than your own feelings. Yeah. Ultimately, we all need to find something more valuable, more important than simply how we feel in each moment. And that's what we have to give a fuck about.
And how do we find our fucks? But by the way, how do you do interviews in the US when you can't say fuck? How does that work?
It gets awkward. So, podcasts, they don't care. But like television, it gets awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
Usually they just don't invite me.
That's their solution. Okay, but how do we find our fucks?
It's difficult and it's personal. So I very intentionally I gave some kind of principles to follow, kind of told people what are good things, tend to be good values, and what tend to be bad values. But ultimately everybody's value system is going to be a little bit different. And I don't push any value system on the people, because that would take away the benefit of finding it. Because it's what makes it valuable is the sense that you found it yourself, or that you decided for yourself. And so if I could easily get up on a stage and be like, these are the 3 things you should care about if you want to be happy. But but then it's my values, and it's people don't get the psychological benefit of discovering who they are for themselves.
Yeah. And do you have a practical how-to? I know it's maybe the most difficult question in the world, but how to discover your fucks or your core values or your mission statement? I don't know. How do you find that?
I think it's for me at least, what is a problem in the world that I seem particularly, my skills and talents seem particularly suited for, and that not many other people, or not enough people, seem to care or be doing enough for. I kind of look for those 3 things. It's like, what am I good at? And how can I contribute? What does the world need? Mm-hmm. And what is something that people should be paying more attention to, but they're not? Those are like the 3 questions that I think will point you in the right direction. And it can be something really simple. It can be like, volunteering at your school where your kid goes, because you think the teachers are messing something up. Like it's not, meaning doesn't have to be this big cosmic thing. It can actually be very simple and practical.
Yeah, cool. And before we're, by the way, also going to talk about your newer book, Everything is Fucked, a book about hope.
This is fucked.
Yeah. Read it in Dutch. Alles is fucked.
Alles is fucked. Eén boek over hoop.
Overhoop. Yeah, hope. Yeah. Yeah. And we say that the subtle art of, we call that de edele kunst van. And then you see, so your other book is like partly Dutch, partly English, you see?
Nice.
I wonder if they, like in Germany and Spain and France, do the entire title in their language or also keep the not giving a fuck part?
Germany, I think, also did half and half. Spanish, French, Italian, they translated the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, we were still actually talking about the three pieces of ideas you have about conventional self-help. So this was number one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that it's indirectly tells you that you're not okay at the moment. And number two, you said they say it's a quick fix. With our 2-day seminar, you will change your life forever. So give us, elaborate on your thoughts on how this really works.
So you can make somebody feel very good in a couple days. And there is some value to that, right? Taking somebody who feels very bad about their life and then putting them in an environment, in a situation where they start to feel very good about their life. That's not nothing. There is some value to that, but that can be done in a few days. What cannot be done in a few days is changing somebody's values. You can't, that very deep fundamental change of this is what I used to care about in my life and now I don't care about it anymore, or I care about this other thing instead. That has to be lived. You can't, it's there are a lot of things in psychology that you can explain very easily intellectually, so it's if somebody's nervous to take a test, you can sit there and explain all the reasons they shouldn't be nervous. Be oh, you studied so much and you're really smart. And you know what, this test isn't that important anyway. And they can understand those things intellectually, but they're still going to be nervous. You can't talk somebody out of their emotions. And similarly, you can't simply talk somebody out of their values. They have to go and experience life in a different way first. So if I'm going to change my value around, let's say, community, I can sit here, I can have a very powerful and profound experience at a seminar or in a lecture or something that changes my opinion of how I relate to the people around me, the people in my town or whatever. But until I actually go interact with those people in a different way, I'm not going to internalize and feel that value change. It's just going to live in my head until that happens. And so you have to go out and live these things. And it's you can't solve a relationship problem by yourself in a room with 500 other people. You have to sit down for weeks and weeks and weeks with your partner and hammer on this stuff. And so I just feel self-help stuff should be honest about what it's selling.
Yeah.
It's selling a couple perspective changes that feel very, very good and are exciting to experience. Whether those have a lasting impact or not is very debatable, and I would argue a lot of times there's not much lasting impact. But that's fine if that's what you're signing up. I know people who they've been to 10 Tony Robbins seminars, and I ask them why, and they're well, it's just so much fun. And I'm all right, well, if that's what you do for fun, then that's fine. Where I have a problem is when they start saying stuff change your life in a weekend and, discover your true self and all this stuff. And dude, not only is that not possible at all, but it's definitely not possible in a freezing hotel room for 2 days.
And can I ask you a tough question?
Sure.
Because you're kind of skeptic towards the self-help scene, and a lot of self-help scene seminars, books talk about find your core values, and actually that's also what you were talking about in your books. So aren't your books also self-help books, but just with better titles and more down-to-earth titles?
Yes. I often describe. It was funny actually when I went to publishers and pitched Subtle Art. My pitch was, it's a self-help book for people who hate self-help. So like all the people who want to change their lives but think that self-help is just, it's a bunch of bullshit. Those are the people I'm writing this book for. So I should say this, like, I believe self-help is possible. I believe it does happen. It can happen. There's actually some research that shows that, reading self-help books does have a positive effect for people. My problem with the industry is the overblown expectations, the empty promises. It's like, let's be honest, right? Like, so if you look at the research on self-help and compared to therapy, reading a bunch of self-help books, the studies show that reading a bunch of self-help books generally gives you maybe like 50 to 60% of the same benefit as like seeing a therapist. Now, for a lot of people, seeing a therapist can be life-changing. It's like they don't need much. They need a little bit of a push. Yeah. And a therapist can be great. And it's the same thing with self-help books. But I just think like we need to know our place. We need to be honest about that. Like we're not a cure-all. We don't change people's lives overnight. We don't, we're not going to like completely revolutionize psychology with this like one small tip that's going to change everything. That's all marketing and bullshit. And I think what makes me different is that I'm honest about that. Yeah. Cool. And like I said, when somebody who's suicidal or has a mental illness contacts me, I tell them, I'm like, I'm not your guy. Yeah. Like, I'm glad you like the book, but I'm not your guy. You need to go speak to a psychiatrist. And was this your motivation like years ago to start blogging about this? No. So honestly, my motivation to start blogging was very selfish and superficial. You heard that it would attract beautiful chicks or yeah, bloggers get all the girls. No, I mean, I wanted to make money on the internet so that I could like travel around the world and party. Cool. Like that's pretty much it. It didn't really occur to me as a long-term career until I was probably like 26 or 27. And because I started my blog and some of my online businesses in my early 20s. And for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to do this for like 5 years, have a bunch of fun, make some money, and then I'll like actually grow up. And but then I got to be like 26, 27. I'm like, wait a second, like I think this could be my career. And then I was like, oh crap, I need to be serious now. Like I need to find something, and that's kind of when I started investigating like what feels important. What do I feel like I could make a contribution to? What is the message that I want my writing and my career to be? And so that stuff emerged later. That was probably 2011, 2012, around then that I started thinking about that stuff. So first you started blogging to finance your ideal lifestyle. And pretty much. And once you found out that it was getting successful, you thought, okay, maybe this is going to be what I do, and then maybe it's an idea to blog about more important stuff. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. But then again, you could have chosen like 20 important subjects, but you choose this one. What made that you choose this one? I'm endlessly fascinated by psychology and just people, and I have a knack for it. Like people liked it. It was interesting because my in the really early days when I wrote blog posts, most of my blogging was like about stupid stuff. It was about partying and girls and travel and like just very superficial things.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I would write a long post about, like a theory I had about relationships of like, why do people date someone who treats them like garbage? Like, why does that happen? And so I'd like write a big piece about it, and people loved it. People were like, oh my God. Like, people started telling me, they're like, you should write a book about this stuff. And that really caught me by surprise. I didn't expect that. And so again, it kind of comes back to, I started to discover that like, this is one area that I seem to have a talent for. It's also an area that the world needs. I think they need help in this area. And then it's also something that I see what I consider to be problems in the industry and in the culture, and I want to be a force of change and of good. So yeah, you get those three things lined up.
And cool. And then
there you go.
It exploded. I mean, 2 million readers per month. What impact had that on your life? That it was like, you almost became like a celebrity because of your blog. What was the impact on your life?
Honestly, it was very weird. Like, being internet famous is like, it's a very strange experience. Because it's like you sit at your computer and you've got like 2,000 emails, and a few hundred of them tell you that like you're an evil piece of shit and they hope you die. And then like the next few hundred say that you changed their life and, oh my God, you're like the best thing ever. And it's just this very emotionally exhausting process. Like, there's just this endless flood of stuff like that. And then you go outside and like nobody cares who you are, and like nothing. You go to the grocery store and it's like exactly like every other time you've gone to the grocery store.
You're like, and behind the laptop, I'm famous.
You're like, I'm important, I swear. But it took me a while. It took me a while to learn how to manage that, to kind of understand the scale of these things, and how it's like, you're just every day you're gonna get hundreds of messages telling you you're great, and you're gonna get hundreds of messages that are either that are annoying or people trying to scam you or telling you awful things. And you, like anything else in life, like you kind of just, you learn how to manage it and cope with it. So that was a weird experience. I mean, the other thing that was just nice is that I finally, my site blew up. It took I had been blogging for 6 years when my site blew up. And so for the first time ever, it's like I wasn't broke. Like, I actually, like I could go to a nice restaurant, and I could, I could buy like, I didn't have to fly like Ryanair. I could like fly KLM. So I'm like,
nice.
this is pretty nice.
Awesome. And maybe this is a great bridge. Do you say that in English? That it's a bridge to another subject? Because, it's about lovers and haters. And you say you can't be you cannot be a source of inspiration for some people without being an asshole for others. And you just told us about your emails. So can you elaborate on this? Because a lot of people, I think, are afraid to do something great because they're afraid they will be criticized and people will think that they're an asshole or people would have opinions about them.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I've found that the more important an action, the more polarizing the responses to that action will be. Because the more your actions are zeroing in on an important value for yourself or for others, the more people are either going to respond to that very strongly, like positively, because they have the same value, or very negatively because it opposes their value. And so I think it's just an unfortunate fact of life, and it comes back to the happiness thing. Like there's no such thing, like you can't avoid your problems.
Yeah.
Like avoiding your problems is itself a problem. So like, it's just impossible to avoid problems. It's similar with people. Like if you're going to live in this world and if you're going to do important things and have important relationships, you're going to have to piss some people off or turn some people off. And it's not fun, but it's something that we all have to learn to accept.
So actually, you should be worried if you're not pissing anyone off. Then you're probably, I can come up with the English word, but then you're maybe not living your true self.
Yeah, it's there was like a famous what was his name? It's a famous business guy. So he used it in the context of money, but I'm gonna change what he said a little bit, just apply it to life because it is true. So what he said is he said if you haven't pissed off anybody by noon, then you're probably not making any money. And I would say I think that's true for life in general. It's like if you haven't pissed anybody off this week, then you're probably not living out your values. Boldly.
Yeah.
You're not living your best life.
Yeah, I underlined this sentence. If you want everyone to think you're nice, no one will love you. Is that the right translation? Yeah. So and then I put holy fuck behind that sentence. Like holy fuck, guys. This is important stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's people don't realize that like you can't have the love without a little bit of the hate. And my experience is that the love will always outweigh the hate. At least if you're doing good things, the love will always outweigh the hate. So it's like 9 people will love you and 1 will hate you. And it's like that's a good bargain, right?
Yeah.
It's you take that bargain. It's not fun to hear from the hater, but like you take that deal. But yeah, if you just try to make everybody like you, then you don't get to experience the love either.
Yeah. And let's put you on the spot. Like big questions. I hope you're happy. I think a lot of people will say you have success. What is your definition of happiness and success? And do you think those two are friends or enemies? So like 10 questions in one sentence, but good luck answering them.
It's interesting because so when subtle art became extremely successful very quickly. And it happened so fast and it was so dramatic that it actually made me very unhappy. And I was surprised by that. Like 2017, I was probably the most depressed I had been since I was a teenager. And I had no idea why. I'm like, what the fuck? Like the best thing that's ever happened to me just happened. And here I am like sitting in my underwear, not showering, playing video games all day. And so I think, and looking back, I mean, it took me a long time to figure out, but like basically what happened was that because I accomplished so many of my goals so quickly, I was left without, I didn't know what to hope for anymore. Yeah. I didn't know what to want. Like what should I try to do next? Like what, is my life over? Like this is probably the best thing I'm ever going to do. So does that mean that everything's downhill from here? And I'm like, I was only 33. So like, that's just not a fun thing to think about. And so I've actually I say that because I've been thinking about this question a lot, is like, how does happiness relate to success? And like, I've come to the conclusion that they're basically the same thing, happiness and success. And I talk about in the book how happiness is solving worthwhile problems. And I feel like success is the same thing. And as soon as you feel like there aren't any problems in your life, then you're robbed of that happiness and you're robbed of that ability to feel successful. It's, after Subtle Art came out, the problem was I felt like it solved all my problems and I didn't have any other problems. I'm like, shit, I don't have to work for like 10 years, maybe ever, if I don't want to, and without any problem to solve or anything, kind of like any sort of stress to push up against in my life, I just felt very lost. And so it even though it was materially the most successful thing that had ever happened to me, I didn't feel successful. It was very strange. It felt like a bad definition of success. It's just selling a lot of books. So I would argue that those two things are very much the same thing or close to the same thing.
And is this why you also claim you need problems to be happy? Because of course, you did have problems in 2017, but you thought you didn't have problems, and that made you depressed.
Yeah, my problems were things that didn't feel important. So it was like my problem was, I don't know, like, how am I going to invest this money? My problem was, my biggest problem was, what am I going to do next? And that was terrifying. That was absolutely terrifying. It felt like a no-win. It felt like a problem that I couldn't solve. Like it was like, no matter what I do next, it's going to feel like a disappointment compared to this other thing. And so that right there, like whenever you're in a spot, like I think kind of you could define depression as the feeling that no matter what you do, it doesn't matter. So like the massive success of Subtle Art put me in a spot where it's like, it doesn't matter what I do next.
Yeah.
People are going to be disappointed with it. A bunch of fans are going to be disappointed with it. The publisher is going to be disappointed with it. So like, why do anything? What's the point? So yeah, it's a weird thing. I was talking to, so I'm working on Will Smith's book, and I was actually talking to him about this, and he said, yeah, it's a common thing in Hollywood with like actors who blow up. He said they become incredibly depressed, and he said that a friend of his calls it altitude sickness. It's like when you climb a mountain too fast and your body doesn't acclimate to the oxygen and you get sick, you can actually die. Said, yeah, it's like if you climb the mountain too quickly, like your brain doesn't have time to catch up, and you get sick from it.
Great metaphor. And could it be that maybe your why wasn't in the right place? Because your why initially was, I want to make money so I can live a cool life. And now you had all this money. Could that be the case, or does that not relate?
I think that's part of it. And this is the hard thing about values, right? Because if you had asked me before Subtle Art came out, I would have told you, I would have told you a lot of the same things I told you today of like why I'm doing this. I had the same kind of intangible value of like changing self-help and having impact on the culture. What was different is that I had tangible values around book sales, being a New York Times bestseller, having my books translated, all this stuff. And I think at the time I underestimated how much I cared about those things. I gave a lot more fucks about book sales and things like that than I thought I did.
Yeah.
And so part of dealing with Subtle Art afterwards was like me discovering that I was full of shit, And it's like, you cared about this a lot more than you thought you did, and now you're paying the price.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of it was that I was a little bit too focused on the numbers and the accolades and things like that.
And how did you manage to get out of that situation?
So with the new book, with Everything is Fucked, so there was a lot of pressure on me for that book, and a lot of people wanted a lot of people wanted me to just kind of write the same book over again, and I didn't want to do that. And so when I decided with that book that I'm going to challenge myself to simply write a better book. Like, I know it's going to sell less. I know some people are going to be disappointed with it, but if I think it's a better book, then I'll be happy.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And I do think it's a better book. I'm proud of both, but I think everything is fucked. The writing is much better. The thinking is much better. And so when it came out, it did very well, which I was happy about, but it was not anything near what Subtle Art was. But I'm okay with that. It's like, that's okay. Like, success, again, it's like, that's not necessarily success. Success is, I wanted to write a better book, and I did. But I was successful.
Of course, there must be a little hope you had that maybe it would outperform.
Oh, of course,
man. Yeah,
of course. You always want it. You're never not gonna want it, right? But I'm okay not having it.
Yeah,
there are things that matter more than that.
And I mean, the title is "Everything is Fucked," and the subtitle is "A Book About Hope." What is the book about? What is the book about? And why do you think everything is fucked? And why do you think we should still have hope?
The paradox is about, the book is about kind of this paradox that we find in that generally the better things get for people, the more upset they get. So it's like the better our life gets, the more comfortable, the more our basic needs are provided for, the more educated we become, the safer our communities become. Paradoxically, the more anxious we become that things are going to go wrong. And so the book is kind of this exploration of why is it that progress, I guess, in the material world creates anxiety and fear for us psychologically. And so I kind of make this argument that, like, we all need hope. We all hope for something better, but the better and better the world gets, or the better and better our life gets, the more difficult it is to know what to hope for. And so we kind of start imagining all sorts of problems that aren't actually there, as a way to give our minds something to hope for. And it was partly inspired by my experience with Subtle Art. It was also, a lot of it was inspired by just like all the craziness that's going on in the United States right now, and actually all over the world, of just people thinking the world is falling apart when actually, when you look at the data, things are better than they've ever been. So it's a fun book. It's interesting. It's more philosophical than Subtle Art.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like Subtle Art was like 2/3 self-help, 1/3 philosophy. Like, Everything is Fucked is like 2/3 philosophy, 1/3 self-help.
And is this also what you're going to talk about here in the Netherlands on the 16th of April?
No, I think mostly I'll be talking about values and how values are basically important both in our personal lives and our business lives.
Cool. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm gonna read Everything is Fucked, and people should buy this book if they see or listen this interview. And I love the point of view you took here. Like, we think everything is fucked, but actually, we in the Western world should really realize we're super lucky and we have all the reasons to be happy, right?
Yeah. And what's ironic is that we need things to be fucked to be able to hope for something. Like, you can't, it's kind of the happiness and the problems thing. Like,
yeah,
if things aren't fucked, then we have nothing to hope for.
Yeah.
It's like, if everything's perfect, then we have nothing to hope for. And that's why we get depressed. So we need things to be fucked so that we have something to look forward to.
So like solving problems makes you happy. Just make sure you're solving the right problems, the problems that matter to you.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can I put you on the spot? That's like a few. I don't know the English word, but it's two opposite things, and you have to choose one. So it's like 15 questions in like 60 seconds.
Sure.
Will be fun at the end of this interview. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Awesome. Day or night?
Day.
Driver or passenger?
Passenger.
Green smoothie or English breakfast?
English breakfast for sure.
Naked or pajamas?
Naked.
Camping or all-inclusive?
All inclusive. No question.
Classical music or death metal?
Death metal.
Ah, great. What kind of bands do you like?
Oh, I'm a big metal fan.
Like Meshuggah stuff and Children of Bodom and that kind of stuff? Lamb of God?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Big Meshuggah fan. Actually, one of my favorite bands is a band called Periphery. And it was cool. It turned out they read my book and they were fans of me and I was fans of them.
Cool.
So I got to go hang out with them after a show when they were in New York. It was awesome.
It only the band name sounds like a band where like every measure has a different count. Is it like
exactly?
Yeah.
It totally is.
Okay. It's getting more difficult now. No more music or no more sex?
Oof. Oof. All right, I'm going to say this quietly because my wife's in the next room, but no more sex.
Oh, wow. It's like
I had a very fun 20s. I'm good. Like,
I'm good. You like you had enough. You saved up.
I had my time, but it's like I cannot give music's my first love. Like I could never give up.
You
music.
cannot live without
Never.
death metal. Okay, cool. And the Maldives or Iceland?
Ooh. I'm gonna go with Iceland.
Cooking at home or going out for dinner?
Going out.
A Monday morning yoga or Friday afternoon drink?
Friday afternoon drink.
Taking risks or playing it safe?
Taking risks.
Money makes you happy or money makes you unhappy?
Both. Depends what you use the money for.
Okay. Richard Branson or Steve Jobs?
Steve Jobs.
Justin Bieber or Justin Timberlake?
Timberlake, for sure.
Book or podcast?
Sorry, but book.
It was nice meeting you, Mark.
Yeah, time to go.
I'm sorry, I forgot to press the record button. No. Focus on the future or focus on the here and now? The present?
Ooh, that's another both.
Yeah.
That's
Elaborate,
another
really
both.
quick.
So I think generally people are bad at focusing on the here and now. So, you want to get good at it, be able to be present in the present moment, but we have to care about the future. Like you can't live without thinking about the future.
Yeah. Cool. It's two left. Enjoying the process or enjoying the achievement?
Process for sure.
Okay. And live one day as a king or live one day as a child?
Oh, king. Absolutely.
What would King Mark do?
Well, that would solve the no sex problem.
Yeah, okay. I can tell you have some vision in your mind right now. Okay, great, man. At the end of this interview, in the outro, I'm gonna do some promotion for your event, the 16th of April, via Denkproducties here in the Netherlands. I will be there, by the way, so we will
cool.
high five in real life.
Me, yeah.
And maybe take a selfie. But before we end this interview, do you have a last piece of wisdom or advice for my beautiful listeners?
Oh, man. I don't know. There's a Montaigne quote that I love that says like, even kings and ladies sit upon their asses.
That means nothing.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. People should do it with that quote.
Yeah, take whatever you want.
But okay, maybe what do you get out of that quote? Like everyone is.
Well, we're all just a bunch of monkeys that are imagining some things are important and other things are not. And
okay.
it's
now I feel you.
It's have fun with it, you know? Like we're all gonna die, and most of this stuff is made up, and so
don't give a fuck.
Try to laugh about it. Try to laugh about it a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, man. Thank you so much. It was a great honor, Mark, to have you in this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
100% wijs!
Ja, bedankt voor het luisteren naar dit interview of kijken naar dit interview. We hebben hem via Skype opgenomen, zoals je hebt gehoord. Dus je kan heel schattig zo zien hoe wij voor onze laptop zitten. En als je het nog niet hebt gedaan, ik hou hem nu in de lucht en je hoort dat ik er tegenaan klop op de podcast. Alles is Fucked, een boek over hoop. Of in het Engels, Everything is Fucked, a book about hope. Van Mark Manson. Die kan je gewoon bestellen via bol.com en alle andere verkoopkanalen. En je ziet hem sowieso in elke ACO en Bruna en alles liggen. Maar nog veel belangrijker. 16 april, donderdag 16 april 2020, Masters of Mindset. Echt, ik hou van dit soort seminars, van dit soort dagen. Ik ben zelf super vaak naar seminars van Denkproducties geweest. Dus ik vind het mega tof dat Hans Jansen, directeur van Denkproducties, iets heel tofs voor jou heeft. Mail gewoon even naar mindset@detijshow.nl. Dan ga je deze fucking vette dag meemaken. En dan heb je dus een gesigneerd boek, een fotomoment met Mark Manson en een meet and greet met Mark Manson. Dus ja, dat is gewoon super tof. Alleen voor de eerste 25 mensen. Dus mail naar mindset@detijshow.nl. Je krijgt een unieke link. En de eerste 25 die daarvan gebruik maken, die genieten ook dus van deze extra's. Ga dat doen. Geniet van deze podcast. Over dat event gesproken. Bertolt Gunster is een van de sprekers die dag. En Bertolt Gunster, die zit gewoon volgende week hier in de 100% Inspiratie Podcast. Ik weet niet hoe het met jou is, maar ik ben enthousiast. Dus tot volgende week. Bestel die tickets. mindset@detijshow.nl. En leef intens.